The galaxy was wide and old. Thousands of worlds, millions of ships, and countless species lived under the shining light of the stars. For ages, the Galactic Council had believed they had seen everything. They had seen peaceful farmers, proud warriors, cunning traders, and strange thinkers. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, and they had grown used to the idea that no new species could surprise them. Then, the humans arrived. At first, they came quietly. A single ship crossed into Council space. It was not large, and its design was strange to the eyes of the Council races. It looked heavier than it needed to be, armored as if expecting trouble. That was the first sign. Many young races built ships that were light and fast, designed to explore the stars with hope and wonder. The human ship was different. It looked ready for war. The Council expected them to be another fragile species seeking guidance. But when the humans spoke, their voices carried a different weight. There was no trembling, no hesitation. They asked questions directly, and when they received answers, they listened carefully. They did not seem afraid of the vast galaxy. Instead, it felt as though they had already faced something larger than fear. Soon, the Council learned about human soldiers. Other species trained armies for defense, to stand guard at their borders or police their cities. These soldiers were often clumsy and hesitant when faced with true danger. But the humans sent patrols into Council space, wearing simple uniforms, carrying weapons that seemed ordinary compared to advanced galactic technology. And yet wherever they went, they left an impression. The first reports came from a border world attacked by raiders. The Council had expected the human detachment to retreat or hold position until reinforcements arrived. Instead, the humans pushed forward. A handful of soldiers, just 20, held a bridge against over 200 attackers. They moved as one, each step measured, each command calm. They fought without panic, even when outnumbered 10-1. When the Council fleet arrived, the raiders were gone. The bridge still stood, and the humans were still alive. They looked tired but not broken. Their leader simply nodded and said, "We held the line." Word began to spread. The Valen traders, known for their sharp senses and sharper tongues, whispered about humans who marched into burning storms to save stranded ships. The Shakar pilots, who prided themselves on speed, told stories of humans who did not flinch even when their vessels spun through black holes' gravity. The gentle Irani healers spoke softly of human medics who refused to leave wounded behind, carrying them through fire when others would have surrendered. At first, the galaxy thought these were exaggerated tales. Every species liked to make myths about bravery. But again and again the reports arrived, consistent, undeniable. Human soldiers were different. The difference was not in their weapons. Galactic weapons were often more advanced. It was not in their armor. Many species had stronger alloys. The difference was in the humans themselves. They did not break. When others would retreat, humans stood. When others would freeze, humans acted. And when others would surrender, humans fought on. The Council began to watch them more carefully. In their private chambers, the elder races whispered, "Why do they fight this way? What have they faced on their world that shaped them so strongly? Are they dangerous to us all?" The humans gave few answers. Their ambassadors smiled politely, spoke with courtesy, and shared technology slowly. But behind their eyes was something unspoken. It was as though every human carried a memory, something invisible yet heavy, something they all shared but did not speak of. The galaxy had seen disciplined armies before. They had seen proud warriors who sang of glory. They had seen desperate militias that fought to the death. But humans were none of these. Humans did not seem to fight for glory, nor out of desperation. They fought because it was natural to them, and that unsettled everyone. The truth became clear when the Zolath pirates raided a small outpost near the rim. The pirates were brutal, known for striking fast and disappearing before help arrived. That night they expected easy prey. But the outpost was guarded by human soldiers, regulars, not elite. There were 30 humans in total. The pirates came with 5 ships and over 200 fighters. The battle was supposed to end in minutes. Instead, it lasted through the night. The humans fought room by room, hall by hall. Their commander ordered civilians to the lower levels, then moved his men into choke points. Grenades flashed, rifles roared, and the air turned to smoke and heat. But the humans never gave ground. Even when wounded, they fought. Even when ammunition ran low, they fought with blades and with their bare hands. When the pirates fled at last, fewer than half remained alive. They left their dead and wounded behind, too frightened to continue. And the humans? They stood at the gates of the outpost, covered in ash and blood, but unbroken. Later, when council inspectors arrived, they asked the human commander why they had not retreated. His answer was simple. "We don't retreat when civilians are behind us." It was said so calmly, as though it was obvious. But to the galaxy, it was not obvious. It was terrifying. Soon a new phrase spread among alien soldiers: "Fear the regulars." Because if these were only regular soldiers, what would happen if humans sent their best? The council asked the question carefully. In quiet meetings, they pressed human ambassadors. "We have heard of other units, shadow units, special ones." The ambassadors only gave small smiles. "That is not a subject for now." The lack of answer was more frightening than any confirmation. One young senator from the Lorith people asked directly during a council debate, "Why are humans so ready for war? Why do they prepare so much when others live in peace?" The human delegate paused. His expression was quiet, but his voice carried across the chamber. "Because peace does not last. Not forever. We learned that long before we reached the stars." There was silence in the chamber after that. The galaxy began to understand. Humanity was not simply another new race. They were something different. Something shaped by endless struggle. Something that had learned to rise after every fall. And if even their regular soldiers made warlords think twice, then the question remained, unspoken but heavy in every heart. What happens when humanity calls for those beyond the regulars? The galaxy was still speaking about the humans. Everywhere, in markets, in council chambers, and in the barracks of distant armies, their name was carried like a rumor. Some spoke with respect, others with fear, but none spoke with indifference. The regular soldiers of humanity had already made their mark. They stood where others would fall. They endured where others would surrender. It was becoming common to hear commanders across the stars tell their troops, "Hold your ground as the humans do." But alongside these stories, darker whispers began to spread. It started as scattered words, fragments from smugglers who claimed they saw humans move like shadows through the ruins of battlefields, or from pirates who swore entire fleets had vanished overnight. These whispers grew louder, collecting into a single name: Special Forces. At first, the galaxy laughed. Every species had legends. The Shakar spoke of pilots who could fly through lightning storms without a scratch. The Valen told of assassins who could kill with a single glance. Most of these stories were exaggerations, nothing more. But the humans did not confirm or deny the rumors. They remained silent, and silence in a galaxy full of words was more frightening than lies. "Who are they?" a young Irani healer asked after tending to human soldiers. "If your regular ones are already so strong, why do you need others beyond them?" The human only looked away and said softly, "You do not want to meet them." That answer was repeated in different forms across the stars, every time someone asked about these mysterious units. The reply was the same, quiet, reserved, and heavy with meaning, and so the whispers grew. The first confirmed sighting came from a warlord named Kareth. He was a tyrant who had risen in the Outer Rim, commanding fleets stolen from conquered worlds. Kareth believed humans were overrated. To him, the stories were nothing but council propaganda, designed to make their new allies look impressive. When he attacked the mining planet of Dathros IV, he expected a simple victory. The world was lightly guarded, with only a few defensive platforms and no major fleet nearby. At first, events went as he planned. His ships entered orbit, his troops landed, and they swept across the mines and settlements. Civilians fled into the hills. The small local defense was crushed. Kareth was satisfied, but then something happened that no one expected. When the council fleet finally arrived to investigate, they found silence. Kareth's ships were floating wrecks, broken and burned, drifting lifelessly in orbit. His ground forces had vanished completely, leaving behind only empty camps and abandoned weapons. The survivors on the planet spoke of figures who had come in the night. Not armies, not fleets, just a handful of humans. "They moved without sound," one miner said. "They struck before the enemy even saw them," said another. "They fought like they already knew what was coming," whispered a third. When asked how many there were, the answers were always the same. "Not more than 12. 12 had undone thousands. The council tried to investigate. Reports were gathered, records examined, but there was no official trace. The Terran ambassador gave a polite smile when asked. Perhaps the warlord destroyed himself, he suggested. But his eyes told a different story. From that day, the whispers of special forces were no longer dismissed as myth. They became a living fear. Among alien soldiers, a saying spread, "If you see one human, there are 10 more in the shadows." Commanders warned their men never to underestimate a quiet battlefield, for it could mean the humans had already arrived. Warlords began to think twice before striking human colonies. Pirates looked for easier prey. It was not the fleets they feared. Not the admirals, not the generals. It was the thought of a small group, unseen, already preparing to end them. Inside the council chambers, debates grew heated. Humanity must reveal the truth, demanded Senator Calith of the Valen. We cannot ally with a race that hides weapons in the dark. They hide nothing, replied the Irani delegate, her voice soft but firm. They protect. Can you not see? Their strength has always been used to shield, not to conquer. And yet, said another, what kind of race needs warriors stronger than the regulars, when their regulars are already enough to frighten armies? There was no answer. At last, one human delegate rose. He was older, with gray hair and sharp eyes. His voice carried no anger, only a calm weight. You ask why we have them, he said. You wonder what they are. I will not give you the details you seek, but I will tell you this. They exist because we have seen darkness deeper than most of you can imagine. There are battles no army can face. There are enemies no fleet can fight. When those come, we send them, not because we want to, because we must. The chamber fell silent. For many species, this only deepened the mystery. What enemies had humanity faced on their own world before reaching the stars? What nightmares had shaped them so strongly that they created soldiers even they hesitated to speak about? The galaxy had fought wars, yes. But most wars were brief, fought over territory or trade. They were conflicts with rules, with treaties, with endings. Humanity's wars seemed different, endless, merciless, personal. And in that silence, in that lack of detail, fear grew. The special forces became a legend, but not the kind sung in bright songs or carved into stone. They became a shadow hanging over every discussion of human strength. A young cadet from the Shikar once asked his commander, "How do you fight them if they are real?" The commander shook his head. You don't. If they come for you, it is already too late. The words spread like fire, until they were repeated across fleets and armies. And yet, behind all the fear, there was something else too, respect. Many saw in the humans not only danger but also sacrifice, for if these mysterious soldiers existed, they did not live for glory. They did not march in parades or wear medals in public. They lived in silence, fighting battles that others would never see, carrying burdens others would never know. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, some whispered not with fear but with hope. If they fight for us, perhaps we are safer than we thought. The humans themselves never confirmed, but they never denied. To those who pressed them, they said only, "We hope you never need to see them." And for the galaxy, that hope was enough. But in the stars beyond, where new warlords rose and ancient threats stirred, the question would not rest. If humanity's regulars were already the soldiers that the galaxy feared, what would happen when the shadows stepped into the light? The galaxy thought it had seen everything, but Dathros IV would prove otherwise. The mining world was quiet and unimportant to most. Its people lived simple lives, digging ore and shipping it to larger worlds. They had no great fleets, no mighty defenses, and no armies to boast of. It was the kind of world warlords chose for easy victories. And so when Warlord Kareth set his eyes upon it, no one believed the planet would last even a day. Kareth's fleet arrived in the dark of space. 10 heavy cruisers, 30 raider ships, and hundreds of ground soldiers. Against them stood only small orbital guns and a local militia of miners and workers. The fight on paper was hopeless. The council heard of the attack too late. Their fleets were days away. By the time they reached Dathros, the world should have been nothing but ash. But when the council arrived, something strange greeted them. Kareth's fleet was gone. His ships floated like broken shells above the planet, powerless and cold. On the ground, his camps were empty. No prisoners, no bodies, nothing. And the civilians, instead of being destroyed, were alive. Shaken, yes. Afraid, yes. But alive. When questioned, they told a story the galaxy would never forget. It began on the second night of Kareth's landing. His soldiers had pushed civilians into camps, planning to take them as slaves. His raiders filled the mines, searching for treasures beyond ore. The people of Dathros had given up hope. Then, as one miner described, the shadows came. At first, no one understood what they meant. But the survivors insisted there were only a few, said a farmer, her voice trembling. Not more than a dozen. But they moved like they were everywhere at once. They did not shout. They did not boast, said another. They came quietly, and when they struck, the enemy vanished. One prisoner described how it happened. He was in the camp, bound and afraid, when the guards outside fell silent. He thought it was nothing until he heard soft footsteps, one after another, closer and closer. Then the locks on the cages clicked open. A human stood there, helmet dark, voice calm. Stay low. Stay quiet. Before the prisoner could speak, the human was gone again, moving into the night. Moments later, explosions lit the distance. The guards never returned. Across the planet, the same thing happened. Small groups of Kareth's men vanished without warning. Patrols were found unconscious, weapons missing. Entire command posts went dark in a single moment. The civilians began to whisper, "The shadows are here." By the third day, Kareth realized he was under attack. He tried to rally his men, sending squads to hunt the intruders. But the more he sent, the fewer returned. "They fought as if they already knew what we would do," said one of the few soldiers who survived. "Every trap we set, they avoided. Every move we made, they answered before we finished it." And then came the night of fire. Kareth, furious and desperate, ordered his fleet to bombard the hills where he believed the intruders hid. The sky turned red and the mountains shook, but when the bombardment ended, his fleet itself came under attack. Not from a large enemy force, not from council ships. From within, sabotaged and engines failed, weapons turned useless, systems shut down. One by one, his ships became helpless shells drifting in orbit. On the ground, his men tried to retreat to the camps. But the camps were already burning. The shadows had struck again. By dawn, it was over. Kareth's army was gone. His fleet was silent. His name, once feared, was erased in a single night. And yet, when the council arrived, the mysterious humans were nowhere to be seen. The civilians said they left before the sun rose. They did not ask for thanks. They did not wait for recognition. They simply vanished, leaving only a warning behind, carved into the wall of a ruined camp. "You are safe. Stay strong. They will not return." The council could not deny it any longer. The whispers were true. Special forces were real. Fear spread quickly. In the barracks of alien armies, soldiers spoke in low voices. If a dozen could end Kareth, what could 100 do? What if they are everywhere already? Commanders began to fear battles they had not even fought. Warlords looked at their fleets and wondered if shadows already walked among them. Even the council itself was shaken. During a closed session, one senator demanded answers. What are they? What gives them such strength? The human ambassador did not smile this time. His face was heavy, his tone serious. "They are not built to conquer," he said. "They are not made for glory. They are made for the moments when no one else can stand, for battles too dark, too dangerous, too cruel for anyone else to face. They carry that weight so others do not have to." His words carried across the chamber, and though no one spoke, everyone felt the same chill. Among civilians, the whispers turned into myths. Children on distant worlds played games pretending to be the shadows who saved the weak. Merchants painted murals of faceless human figures standing guard over villages. The legend grew larger with every retelling, but the humans themselves never claimed it. They did not write songs or boast of victory. Instead, when asked about the shadows, they said only, "We hope you never need to see them again." And so the galaxy was left with two truths. The first, humanity's regular soldiers were already feared by all. The second, somewhere beyond them, hidden in silence, there were others, stronger, quieter, shadows who appeared when hope was lost. And if such a small number could erase a warlord in one night, what would happen if humanity ever truly unleashed them? The galaxy did not know, and that ignorance was more frightening than any answer. The story of Dathros 4 spread faster than light. It was told in markets, on transport ships, and in the secret halls of warlords. The tale was always the same. A fleet had vanished, an army had collapsed, and a world had been saved by shadows that no one could see. At first, many thought it was an exaggeration. But the wrecks of Warlord Kareth's fleet floated in orbit as proof. His name, once sharp with fear, had become only a whisper of failure. Everyone knew who was responsible, even if no one had seen them directly. Humans. And with that single word, fear began to spread. Alien armies whisper in the barracks of the Shkar flight academies. Young pilots trained in silence. They were a proud species, known for their speed in the skies. But now, when they practiced combat drills, one phrase was repeated over and over: be ready, even when you cannot see them. One cadet finally asked his commander, "How do you fight shadows? How do you fight something that strikes without warning?" The commander, a veteran of many battles, only shook his head. "You do not fight them. You survive if they allow it." The words chilled the young cadets more than any enemy threat. On another world, in the Valian training camps, soldiers repeated a different saying: "Pray you never meet the humans called special." It was no longer a rumor. It was becoming a rule. The council debates inside the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council. The subject of humanity returned again and again. Some senators demanded answers. They hide too much, one argued. They bring fear wherever they go. We must demand they reveal the truth of these forces. Others spoke with caution. They have never attacked without reason. They have never conquered a single world. Every time they act, it is to protect. But the silence of the humans was the loudest voice of all. Their ambassadors never gave details. They listened, they nodded, but when pressed, their answer was always the same. Some things are not meant to be used unless they must. That reply left the chamber heavy with unease. A warlord's lesson, in the Outer Rim. Another warlord tested the humans. His name was Draxon, a creature of iron scales and deep cunning. He believed Kareth's defeat had been due to his own weakness, not the strength of humanity. "Stories grow bigger in the telling," he told his advisors. "I will see for myself." He sent his raiders to harass human trade convoys. At first he targeted only small ships, hoping to draw out their defenders. When human fleets arrived, Draxon withdrew, laughing at their slow movements. But one night his laughter stopped. 3 of his bases were destroyed in silence. No alarms were raised, no battles recorded. His soldiers simply vanished, his weapons gone, his strongholds burning before anyone realized. One message was left behind, carved in the steel walls of his main fortress. "This is your first and only warning. Draxon never tested the humans again. Civilians see the shadows differently, while soldiers and warlords feared the humans. Civilians whispered about them with hope. On Dathros Dufour, children pretended to be shadows in their games. They ran through the streets, hiding in corners, jumping out to shout, 'We are the humans!' Their laughter echoed where fear once lived. Merchants painted murals of faceless figures standing guard over villages. Farmers carved small statues of shadowy guardians and placed them near their fields. To civilians, the shadows were not something to fear. They were something to trust. 'They come when hope is lost,' said one miner. 'They do not ask for payment, they do not ask for thanks. They simply make sure we live another day.' In this way, humanity's mysterious forces became both a fear and a comfort, terror to those who sought power, and protection to those who sought peace. The weight in human eyes, but not all saw them as legends. Some had met them, and those who had noticed something strange. On one station, an Irani healer spoke quietly to her fellow medics. "I treated a man who was one of them. He did not say it, but I knew. His eyes were different. He carried silence in them as if his soul was heavier than his body." Another healer nodded. "I saw one too. He refused all rest until every wounded person was safe. He looked tired, but he smiled when others smiled. Yet when he was alone, the smile faded and he seemed far away. This was the truth of humanity's shadows. They carried burdens no one else could see." Council chamber again. The council continued to argue. The Valen Senator Kaleth, always sharp, demanded answers one more time. "If these special forces are real, then we must know their number. We must know their limits. If they are unstoppable, then humanity could one day turn them against us." The human ambassador stood slowly. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that silenced the chamber. "You speak of them as if they are weapons," he said, "but they are not. They are people. They are our brothers, our sisters, our children. They are the ones who stand when no one else will. Do not fear them for what they can do. Respect them for what they choose not to do." The chamber was silent after that. For the first time, many realized the truth. The most frightening part of humanity's shadows was not what they did, but what they restrained themselves from doing. The fear spreads further. Soon, the very idea of facing humanity became a deterrent. Pirates turned away from human colonies. Warlords moved their fleets elsewhere. Even distant empires who had never met humans began to ask carefully before crossing their space. "Do not awaken the shadows," became a warning passed from commander to commander. Even without fighting, humanity gained something no other species had achieved so quickly: respect through fear. And yet, behind every whisper, every debate, every fearful glance, one question remained unanswered. If humanity's regulars were already strong enough to earn galactic fear, if their special forces could erase fleets in silence, what would happen if they ever decided to reveal their full strength? The galaxy had learned to fear them. First, it was the regular soldiers of humanity, ordinary troops who held their ground when others would flee, soldiers who stood like stone against storms of fire, who carried civilians across burning fields, who fought until victory or death. Then came the whispers of the shadows, the special forces. They were never seen in daylight, never named in public. But their work spoke louder than any parade. A dozen men and women erasing warlords, bases destroyed in silence, fleets broken from within. To the galaxy, these humans became legends. To warlords, they were nightmares. To civilians, they were protectors. But to humanity itself, they were a burden. The return of silence in council chambers. The debates continued, but now with softer voices. Few dared demand answers anymore. Most only asked in quiet tones, "Why do they carry such shadows? Why would a race choose to make such forces when their regular armies already frighten the stars?" The humans gave the same reply again and again. "We did not choose them because we wanted them. We chose them because we needed them." It was not an answer that gave comfort. The veteran's story: one day on a neutral station, a human veteran sat in a quiet corner. His uniform was plain, without medals or marks. An Irani healer approached him. She had heard whispers that he was one of the shadows. She asked carefully, "Why do you fight this way? Why carry so much pain?" The man looked at her for a long time. His eyes were tired but not unkind. "We fight," he said softly, "so that others don't have to." "But the weight," she insisted. "It must be heavy." The man gave a small smile that did not reach his eyes. "Yes, but better we carry it than the children of tomorrow." The healer never asked again. For in that moment she understood more than any council debate had revealed: the truth behind strength. The galaxy had always thought strength was about weapons, fleets, and numbers. But humanity showed something different. Their strength was not only in battle. It was in endurance, in sacrifice, in choosing to walk into darkness so others could live in light. The special forces were the sharpest edge of that choice. They did not exist to conquer or to claim or to rule. They existed because sometimes war became too dark, too cruel, too dangerous for anyone else to face, and so humans sent their shadows. The cost, but such strength came with a cost. Those who returned from the special forces were never the same. They smiled less. They spoke less. Their eyes carried memories that could not be shared. Other soldiers looked at them with respect but also sadness, for they knew these were men and women who had seen too much. In human culture, they were honored not with songs or statues, but with silence. When they walked into a room, people stood quietly, not out of fear, but out of recognition, because every human knew the truth. These shadows lived so that others could remain in the light. A council revelation. Final turning point came when an old human general spoke at the council. His hair was white, his face lined with age, but his voice was strong. "You look at us and you see danger," he said. "You look at our soldiers and you wonder if we will one day turn them against you. But you do not see what we see. You do not see the weight they carry." He paused, scanning the chamber. Every alien eye was upon him. "Our regulars fight because they must. They protect the weak, they hold the line. But our special forces? They fight where no one else dares. They walk into the darkest places so your people never have to. Do not fear them for their strength. Respect them for their sacrifice." Silence followed. Not fear, not argument. Just silence. Because at last the truth was clear. The galaxy understands over time. The galaxy began to change its view. Yes, there was still fear. Warlords still spoke the warning. Do not awaken the shadows. Soldiers still whispered about faceless humans who could end armies overnight, but alongside the fear came respect. A recognition that these were not monsters, not weapons, not conquerors. They were guardians. Guardians who had chosen to carry pain so others could live without it. Civilians built small shrines to honor them. Children across different species now played not only as shadows, but as those who saved the helpless. Even alien songs were written, soft and slow, to remember the humans who came in silence and left without thanks. The shadows had become more than fear. They had become a symbol, humanity's own fear. Yet the deepest truth was one the galaxy did not see. It was not the aliens who feared the special forces most. It was humanity itself, because every human knew that to become one of them meant giving up something precious. A piece of peace, a piece of innocence, sometimes even a piece of hope. They feared what would happen if too many shadows were needed. They feared what kind of galaxy would demand such sacrifices again and again. And so, whenever the question came, what will happen if you unleash them fully? The humans always gave the same quiet answer. We hope you never have to find out. The final legacy years passed, and the galaxy learned to live with this truth. War still came, as it always does. But wherever civilians cried for help, wherever darkness threatened to swallow the weak sometimes, only sometimes shadows appeared. No one ever saw them arrive. No one ever saw them leave. But when the sun rose again, the people were safe, and the enemy was gone. And in every corner of the galaxy, in every language and every voice, a saying grew. The stars are wide and full of dangers, but if you are lucky, the humans may send their shadows. Closing words, in the end, humanity did not conquer the galaxy. They did not rule it with fleets or armies. They shaped it with something stronger. Fear, yes, but also respect. Because the galaxy realized that humanity's greatest strength was not power. It was choice. The choice to fight not for glory, not for conquest, but for others. And so the legend lived on. Humans called them special forces. The galaxy called them something else. Guardians of the light.